going to come to you with this elusive gold for Malaysia. Why do you think squash was never part of the Olympic game movement to begin with?
If the bus is full, there's no room, then wrestling somehow managed to get in on the ballot because of a lot of lobbying from President Putin and India and Korea and China. I mean, the whole world was.
Ooh, a good idea.
All right, welcome to Marketing Mavericks, a light-hearted interview session with a wide variety of unique individuals to see what makes them tick and how they aim to get ahead in the diverse world of marketing. I'm Pete de Kretser, founder and CEO of Go Communications. Look forward to sharing your company here today because we've got an extremely special guest in Tunku Tan Pete Imran, Chairman of SportExcel, and let me get through this, Tunku, because there's a huge list. The former President of the Olympic Council of Malaysia, Honorary Member of the International Olympic Committee, of which there are only 3, and General Sporting Doyen. Tunku, welcome, and lovely to have you.
I'm very happy to be here, Pete.
Thank you so much. Listen, Tunku, we've known each other for a few years, I dare say, when I was a whippersnapper. Yes, and it's a double Pete combo today. Just wanted to start the discussion with finding out kind of what you've been up to, and moreover, your work with SportExcel, which is a fantastic institution that I know you've had running for a little while now. Can you just give us a little bit of an update in terms of what's happening there?
Well, can I just say, a lot of people won't know what SportExcel is and
Please.
why I started it about 33 years ago. I was already involved in sports management, and I noticed that in the schools had, in the education part of the schools, Ministry of Education had decided to put all their sports into carnivals for each sport. So cricket had a once-a-year carnival where all the states came, and all the other, football and squash and whatever, badminton, at once a year.
Right.
So that was the only sort of thing that they did for the year. So I said, how is a top player, competitor, going to really improve when all he's got is this one peak a year? So that's what this SportExcel came to mind, or why I started SportExcel in Malays. Yayasan Kecerdasan Sukan Malaysia, so it's shortened to SportExcel. It's excellence in sport.
Right.
And so we decided to run these circuits with many legs, with a grand final for a number of sports. So it's now, we now have 10 sports. We deliberately kept out of the mainstream sports, the football, the hockey, the badminton, because they were already well funded. So we looked for sports that were underfunded. So we did golf, we did bowling, and we did squash, tennis, shooting, and a few others now. And so it's been a great success. And recently, in golf, it's probably some of our biggest successes.
Right. Okay.
In golf, because the golf is very, very much, keeps moving. And we have a lot of youngsters coming through, and we have a number of programs in golf. Squash, of course, it was our superstar. We can almost claim that we were partly involved in the creation of
our queen,
Dato Nicole David.
I was just going to ask, who are are there some superstars that the audience might know that have come through SportExcel?
Well, there are a lot of the men's side, Ong Beng Hee, and a few people like that. We've had, the girls have done well, and particularly when they're put together as a team. But we have this wonderful prospect now, I think Siva Sangri,
right,
who was now at sort of Princeton. Or is it Cornell? I always get mixed up.
Both very illustrious,
illustrious
institutions.
And she had this just a bad accident, and then she's come back, and then she's now number 10 in the world.
And what sport is this, Tunku?
Squash.
It is,
Sorry,
okay.
this is squash.
Right.
And then in bowling, we've had all the Charlins, Zulkiflis, and that lot. So, we've done, we were very happy with what we do. I think all the associations that we work with are very happy. And also the people who back us are very happy. But your question was, what is now, latest thing in SportExcel? Excuse me. The latest thing is that we've now in our first year of organizing a track cycling series with Yayasan Saimdawi as the big sponsor and contributor, and the branding is the YSD track series, run by SportExcel.
Right.
And it gives all our young riders a chance to, again, have the opportunity to race against each other, all the top ones, and also occasionally we'll be bringing in foreign riders.
But we've had some recent success in that
Well,
particular
that's-
category as well,
Exactly,
have we not?
exactly. And when you look at the qualifiers for Olympics, one of them is Nurul Izzah,
Who we met
who we
just the
have
other day.
met recently.
That's right.
And she is so excited about going. And of course, Dato Azizul and Shah are going to be there, the two sort of more accomplished men riders.
Right.
Azizul, of course, is another icon. I mean, certainly in the Malaysian cycling world, I mean, he's a total icon. The 5-time, this is going to be his 5th Olympics.
Amazing.
I mean, in a tough sport like track cycling. And he says he's feeling better than ever.
And I remember when we did catch up, and he was talking about the sort of mental aptitude, right, to not only just keep going, but how that plays such a pivotal role in terms of elite sport.
Yeah.
You mentioned the, sort of repeated occasions that he's going to the Olympics and whatnot, but that seemed to be his fundamental focal point, where he just said, look, if you don't have that sort of mentality of being there, that's the 2% that gets you the accolades, I suppose.
Pete, it's not just in cycling. Actually, it's in all sports at the top.
Sure.
I mean, Formula One, of course. You take a split second of your concentration. You might be in the off the track. Sort of golfers. A slight sort of thing in putting, and they've just missed a birdie, or they've missed their par. So I think there's a lot. He's speaking, and like all of them do, all champions will tell you that at the end, it's that mind that really needs to keep ticking right to the end.
Understand, and such a fabulous guy as well. Tunku, I just want to expand a little bit, because obviously SportExcel was a passion project for you initially, and potentially built it up and brought out all these lovely stars. You've been around the world just in your capacity through different variations of sport and all that. I mean, where is Malaysia currently just in terms of the sporting foundation, whether it be academies and youth systems, and are we getting better? Is there progress? What's the current climate in your eyes?
I think we can't generalize on this one. I think that some sports are doing extremely well, and squash and golf are, two of them, and bowling. But there are other sports that are not doing as well as they have done and could have done. And I think that the issue is that the best facilities in this country, which are in the schools and with the local authorities, are very much underutilized. And that is where, for me, the future lies. It's not a question of putting more money into, into sports, and then, it'll happen, because Rome wasn't built in a day. And,
sure.
And to build a champion takes years. But until all our young people have this opportunity to play on those facilities, when they're young, and have organized activity, which then goes through sometimes into the evenings, and then into the weekends, and even during the school holidays. So the Ministry of Sport can't do it on its own. And for me, sports is for everyone. Whether you're the Ministry of Education opening up your fields, or you're the Ministry of Defense, or you're the police, or you're the Ministry of Health, or you're the Ministry of Science, and whatever it is, everyone should be involved in sport, because sport is part of life. And if they don't try and sort of segment sport, then they are actually not, helping the young people, and even the old people, and all the people who are interested in sport or could be interested in sport. They were, introduced to it, and it could go. That's one of the biggest issues. And again, the best organizers of any sort of tournament or league or whatever is the community itself. You get 6 schools together in a small area like PJ, and if they just got together and formed themselves into a little football league, they would easily organize it at different age group levels. They would organize as a home and away. They'd organize a whole league, which is like 15 weeks of football already, and you don't even have to have lots of money involved, because parents will pay, whatever it is, at the local butcher will pay or whatever, so it's not rocket science. So we then come back to the question you asked. So where are we? Well, the academy, how are we doing? So for me, some are doing well, but most are still too dependent on being the handouts, and what the government are going to give them, or what the national association is going to give them, or what the state government's going to give them, rather than do it themselves.
Understand.
And I think this is something that I learned when I was at university at Nottingham, and I was involved in cricket, squash mainly, but other games, rugby, etc. But when I became the secretary of squash, of the squash club, in my last year, I realized that we had a lot of activity, which were all organized by the students themselves, and all the university did was provide you the squash courts. Everything else we had to do. So we had about 50 matches in the year, and I was secretary, and I got it all on the plate from the previous secretary, because before he left, he'd organized all the matches for the next year. So I did the same. So it's like a continuation for my, successor.
Right.
So it was all sort of, based on the community, the mini community of squash.
And Tunku, I'm with you. Again, a passionate sports myself, and you're right. You don't necessarily, we've seen it, even in Malaysia, dare I say it. I use an example like Pandalela Rio. This lovely lady, all the way from East Malaysia, West Malaysia, Sarawak, I believe it is. But gosh, who would have thought that we would have a performer, an athlete in diving at that level from Sarawak, with due respect? Again, and gosh, did she show. So I'm not sure.
I think it's very unfair to Sarawak. A lot of rivers in Sarawak.
But you're diving from a pretty shallow bank, aren't you?
She dives from the tree into the river.
Well, that's all the more so. And then I think you were sort of echoing
That was a game for her.
But you're echoing my point. You don't need the institutions
jump
necessarily.
From the branch of the tree straight into the water below.
That's amazing, isn't it? Though, And if I compare that, even the sophistication of sports in other countries, they're going to institutes, they're looking at diets, and on the other hand, you've got someone that's competing at even a higher level that's diving from trees into rivers, and I mean, that's quite beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that you will find a lot of these, examples coming out, but yeah, you still need that, very well-ordered academy, institute, with the assistance of physios and mental, therapists and everything else.
But the game has also changed to good, wouldn't you say? I mean, just the acceleration of sport.
Yeah, the game at the international level has changed completely. I mean, to think that many years ago, I was playing what I thought was top cricket, playing a bit for Malaysia and Hong Kong or against Singapore, whatever it is, or in squash, But we even then, we were a long way away from being global, world class. So you really have to work at it. You have to have a following for it within the country, and you have to have, of course, the means to have money, because when you get to that higher levels, you will need money for the traveling, for all this, other add-ons. But all I'm saying is, in order for that to happen, those grassroots sort of communities, you got to build your community of players, of participants, of stakeholders, of people interested in that sport first. If not, it's not gonna, you won't have that base. You can spend as much on the academies as such, and it might last for a few years, but I don't think that it'll be sustainable until you
it's an interesting
grown that sport is a solid.
So what you're saying, which is a really interesting point, almost indoctrinated in the culture, right?
Well, I think sport is a culture, and then I think that you will go now to that next question: is Malaysia a sporting nation, a great sporting nation?
Sure, why not?
Okay, well, I would say not yet, and a lot of hard work has to be done, and a lot of structures need to be changed before it can be called a great sporting nation, because sport, unlike Australia, New Zealand, England, sport is not part of our, DNA really. I don't think so. I think that, if you look at 1 to 10 kids, very few of them will be playing sport, and even if they do play sport, it's just a fun thing. Some may be interested in a bit further up, but it's only because they follow the winners. So like my grandson is Manchester City. Well, I remember a couple of years ago he was Liverpool. So hello.
Sounds like a few of my colleagues, actually. Yes, indeed.
The Lalang,
That's right. But putting a marketing slant to it, Tunku, which again, obviously sports based, but I asked the question, look, comparatively where Malaysia is against the rest of the world, but do you think that Malaysia, whether it's the individuals, the country, markets our heroes and superstars well, and could we do more, or are we doing quite well in terms of how that shapes, just from a global perception standpoint?
I think for many years, when Nicole David, was winning world championships, I think most Malaysians didn't know who we're talking about, quite honestly. Which was a pity, because I think if you said the squash, they wouldn't understand what you were talking about either, and most people had not seen a game of squash. But when Nicole David retired, when everyone saw just what her achievement was, and the fact that she was the GOAT, the greatest of all time in squash, and not only just some people had given her that accolade, it was her own people, the squash players, the professional squash players, past and present, voted her, men and women. And so we are talking about now, the Jahangir Khans included, of the men's game, and Jeff Hunt. And we had little Nicol David from Malaysia was voted the greatest of all time in a game, in a global game like squash. So I think it's only then that they realized, and I think people start wanting to know what squash was like. How do you play squash? And, what is it? And then it started, being televised properly on TV. So in the Asian Games, you saw a lot of squash because we were winning, and as you know, we won many gold medals, and we, without squash, our record in the last Asian Games would have been very weak because the badminton guys didn't deliver. So, it's something that it's well marketed now, but to me, although I'm a former president of Malaysian squash. Before that, we really didn't need to market it to Malaysia wholly at that time.
Right.
We had enough, people supporting it. Again, it's a squash community again that were really very much behind, the game. I mean, it's. I ask is there any other sport in Malaysia at any time that had 93 teams in their Kuala Lumpur area league. 93 played on 5 days, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, that's impressive, isn't it?
And run by 2 people, myself and the honorary secretary.
There you are.
There you are. Simple. It's they were all behind. The community loved it. Simple organization, whoever's named first is in charge of, booking the courts and informing the other and giving the results in. And so then the next one, and everyone finished it. We finished the league. And the only sponsorship I remember we got was 7-Up that gave us 8,000 ringgit for the winners.
And a few cans of product, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. But I know, look, I'm going to come to you with this because I know in our sort of sidebar chats that it potentially was a pet peeve. You talked about Dato Nicol David, this elusive gold for Malaysia. Now, why in high heavens? Because why is squash, I know it's coming, why do you think squash was never part of the Olympic game movement to begin with? I mean, why have we had to wait so long when it's considered, you could argue, comparatively with synchronized swimming and all the other sports that have come in recently? Why was that left off the list?
Okay, many sports came in as a branch or a division of a main sport.
Right.
So synchronized swimming came in as part of aquatics, which is the overall sport.
I see.
So, that's how a lot of sports come in. I'll tell you a story about that a bit later.
Sure.
About branch, and then squash is tried. Squash is tried since I became a vice president of World Squash in 1986, and then I spearheaded the bid when I became the president in 1989 until 1996, and we had presentations, to IOC and everything, and they liked the sport, they knew the sport, but the standard reply, and particularly from the president, Juan Antonio Samaranch, then the famous old man, he said, it's like, Your Royal Highness, he says, it's like they're trying to queue for a bus. If the bus is full, there's no room. I'm sorry, we got to wait for someone to get off the bus.
Right.
2005, there was a vote in Singapore, and for one sport to come in, we won it, but we didn't have the necessary 60, to 2/3 majority We only had 51%. But, so we didn't get in. And then we had to wait for the next time that it was available, we went in. They'd already changed the rules to just have a sort of first past the post, basically, or if, it wasn't 2/3, so it was easier to get in. And there were three sports that pipped us. Rugby sevens, golf, rugby sevens and golf.
Right. Okay.
So those are the two sports that pipped us. So, okay, fine. You're not going to beat golf and rugby sevens when it comes to the voting, because it's money and eyeballs and,
Of course, I'm sure there's a full criteria behind it.
Those are some of the criteria. And then the third time, wrestling was dropped. So we were a strong contender. Then wrestling somehow managed to get in on the ballot because of a lot of lobbying from President Putin and India and Korea and China. I mean, the whole world was saying wrestling was one of the original sports of the Olympics. Why, is it being dropped? And then, of course, they got in. So 3 times in a row that we had very good chances, and once we actually there, that finished the race first, but were not awarded it. It's been there or thereabouts, and luckily when the vote for Paris and LA were put together as one vote, so that they had a continuity of Olympic Games. I managed to talk to the LA people, and he was Eric Garcetti, who was the mayor of Los Angeles then, and Casey Wasserman, who was a CEO of the bid. I said, "What about squash?" "Oh yeah, we'd love squash." He says, "Well, what about squash in the Olympics?" "Yep, if it's in LA, definitely we'll have squash in the Olympics." So, with LA coming in 2028, we have squash in the Olympics, and of course, our favorite game, cricket, also has managed to get in. Now, if we go back to cricket, it's a story I like to just talk to you about.
Please.
Malaysian Commonwealth Games 1998. Now, we won that Commonwealth Games, against Adelaide in a very interesting battle, because it's always never been outside the big countries, except for once in Jamaica in 1966, when Jamaica was still a colony of Britain. So we were the first people to really have a go for it in bidding, and our opponents were Adelaide, Australia, and then the Commonwealth Games Federation met during the Olympics. So it was in 1992 in Barcelona where it was going to be decided. It's Commonwealth Games 1998 coming to Kuala Lumpur, or was it going to go to Adelaide? And we had a nice meeting, assembly, and on the 2 separate days there were 2 opportunities for reception by the bidders. Adelaide was the first night, and they had this obviously good old Barossa Valley, a lot of wines, beautiful wines, cheese, lovely evening.
If you're going to seduce someone, that's a pretty good way to do it.
That is a very good way to do it.
Sure.
But we gazumped them the next night, because we had brought in I'd brought in this organist singer who could sing all the calypsos, and everyone was in the party. We brought in the king, because he happened to be there, Sultan Azlan Shah, who's there for the hockey. He's very interested in hockey. So we brought in the king of Malaysia. We brought in the mayor of Kuala Lumpur, Tan Sri Ilyas Omar.
Hi guys, a brief interlude during this fiery chat, just to bring your attention to an incredibly worthwhile cause. in Hospis Malaysia, an institution that we work very closely with here at Go. You can find the contact information probably here below and the website, just to bring attention and awareness to a terrific organisation and to see if you can help in any way you can. So thanks for listening.
And we brought in Malaysian chefs. So we had satay, we had all the
brilliant.
Malaysian food, and we had a party. And the next day was the General Assembly, and we won it basically easily. And so I asked one of them, by the way, why did you vote for Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur? he said, I think it was somewhere from Jamaica or something. Man, we're going to have much more fun in Malaysia than in Australia, aren't we?
Wow. Okay, now I'm sort of split.
sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Well, and then when we sat on the drawing board, having got the games, we found that the Commonwealth Games was a very, very boring 10 sports, all individual sports. Athletics, badminton, table tennis, swimming. I mean, all the traditional sports, but not really, exciting. And so I started I was the vice president of Olympic Council of Malaysia then, and we started the discussion. And I said, look, as far as I'm concerned, Commonwealth Games must be, represent what the Commonwealth is best at. So I said, let's put in hockey, rugby, cricket. I said, these are three of the top Commonwealth sports.
Absolutely.
Netball, squash, and then we added in bowling. So we went in for rugby sevens, we went, and cricket. And this is coming back to the cricket. We had 16 teams playing 50 over matches on eight cricket grounds, and with the branding of the West Indies broken up into Barbados, Jamaica, Antigua. They're the three that qualified from their domestic tournament. And they loved it. And since then, they've been bugging me ever since, those guys, from Big Bird to everyone. When are we going to Golden Greenwich? When are we going to have cricket in the Commonwealth Games, which finally in 2022 in Birmingham they had, which is the T20 version. But can you believe that all these years that we were the only country that had cricket in the Commonwealth Games, and we were followed by India, Delhi, 2010, 26, sorry, Manchester.
Massive cricketing
Manchester
nation.
first.
Yes, England, of course.
Then India, and Australia, then India.
Which are all top cricketing nations in itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And none of them wanted to have cricket.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, little Malaysia brought cricket up. I mean, we did both. I mean,
Not a lot of people
rugby
will know
sevens,
that.
and I'll tell you another one. Rugby sevens, during this time when I said, they beat us, Jonah Lomu was representative, player representative for the International Rugby Board. And he was asked the question, but has Rugby Sevens ever been in a multi-sports games? And he said, yes. In the Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur, it's the best tournament I've ever been at.
That's saying something. The great All Black winger, right?
Yeah, the great Jonah Lomu. So, we're responsible for a lot, but at that Commonwealth Games, we moved it from, a boring, individual 10-sport game to something which is really, really good. And hockey has appreciated it, rugby have appreciated it, netball have appreciated it.
But that's a mighty achievement, and
And
perhaps
squash, of course,
Malaysia's not been sort of celebrated for all the efforts in terms of doing that moving forward.
I think within the movement, the Commonwealth Games Federation, I think they recognize Malaysia's effort. That's why.
But that story hasn't necessarily come out, though.
That's why recently they did come back. That's the recent story.
Well, I wanted
Commonwealth
to ask you
Games.
this question, Tunku, is because obviously, look, I'm an adopted Malaysian, been here 20 years.
And you're also from Victoria.
And I am also from Melbourne, Victoria. So obviously the debacle with the current, or not so current now, but Commonwealth Games that was supposed to be held in, and again, I'm certainly not going to speak ill of my home country, hometown, nor will I here. But is this good representation? I mean, how can you sort of, for lack of a better word, mess that up in terms of...
Well, I think they were over ambitious in thinking that they could run a games, you know, for the whole of Victoria rather than just sort of Melbourne and then have one or two sports outside. I think that politically they underestimated the feedback that they would get from the people. Local governments were asking for all sorts of things, a new stadium, new traffic lights, new car parks. I mean, it was like suddenly, the cost balloon, and I think the Victorian government got cold feet. I mean, politically, and backed out, and so Commonwealth Games got a very bad reputation. And then, of course, at the same time, which didn't, help, was that Birmingham City Council declared bankruptcy because of the 22 Commonwealth Games. So everyone has this perception that Commonwealth Games is very expensive. So after that having been given up, the Commonwealth Games Federation were in a real quandary. So they came back to us. They went to Singapore. They thought that, okay, we were the two countries that could do it, and didn't need any new facilities, no new hotels, because we had it all, and we've done games before, particularly Malaysia. We've done a Commonwealth Games before. Singapore, we've done some big events, but never a big games, except for SEA Games. And so they spoke to us. Olympic Council of Malaysia were really very much behind it because we thought that we can do it. They put £100 million as a fee for the country that does it.
Right.
And we had meetings with, big meeting with, government, Ministry of Finance, the sports people present, all stakeholders, sports. Yeah, we said, yes, we're going to go. We went to cabinet, shut down. And I think the press didn't help. The press was very negative.
About the cost implications?
Mainly the cost implication, because they were saying, well, if Victoria can't do it, why do you think that Malaysia can do it, and all this other stuff? Not really. I mean, we had the details were that we're not going to build village, we're going to be hotels, and they're all going to be much closer to the venues.
And using existing infrastructure, I imagine, and all that type of thing, right?
And 100 million is 600 million ringgit, which, you don't, or 500 million ringgit for pounds. It is pounds, not dollars.
Sure.
And so, anyway, it was shut down. And I think that there was no will in government, and maybe it was too political, 2026 being the year before the next general election and all that. So, okay, we didn't get it, and I think it was Malaysia's loss.
Do you think, I was just going to ask the question, do you think it was a mistake?
I think it's a huge mistake to not do it. I know the timing, okay, time-wise it would have been very tight, but we do have the experience, we do have the facilities, and I think that amongst the sports fraternity and those close to the sports fraternity, yes, I think we have the, because we wanted it, but I think the government didn't have the will, or didn't dare, or they trod the conservative, the more,
Because I mean, you could use the example of 1998, and I know you were heavily involved when it was in Malaysia. Again, from having a marketing perception standpoint, what do you think that games did for the country? I mean, how was it sort of a positive in obviously people are going to sort of look at tourists, people coming in, spending.
For sport, I think
from a branding perspective for the country.
It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic.
Right.
We were regarded everywhere in the world as, now one of the top sort of squash, not even just squash, I mean sports countries of those, from those particular sports. Those officials that had been here, they thought, wow, organization was brilliant, and it was just not only just brilliant, it was also fun and easy. And I think that each sport that was there, the sports that were there, really their level moved from a sort of a middle to low level, some of them, to really very high levels. Partly because the government did put a lot of money, because they said that, okay, we are going to do well in these games because they are home games, and we did do well. We won more medals at that Commonwealth Games than we've done in any other Commonwealth Games.
And sometimes you need that jump start, right?
Yeah, and it was really very, very good. And that's what I thought, that 2026 would be another one of these jump starts. I know people keep on saying, oh, well, we should do Asian Games, because I can tell you that Asian Games would be even more expensive.
Is that right?
Than the Commonwealth Games, because the deal, with the Olympic Council of Malaysia is not quite the same as it would be. It was with the Commonwealth Federation.
Right.
Because whereas the Commonwealth Federation were giving you money, the Olympic Council of Asia were really taking away the money. They wanted this share of the marketing costs, the rights, and this share of the sponsors, and then they would say, you'd have to do these general assemblies there at your cost, and you'll fly in. I mean, it's a very, very expensive proposition,
right.
Asian Games. And you can see in recent times, okay, we've had it in Indonesia, and that was very much the government of Indonesia wanting it and Jokowi wanting it as part of his legacy. But who's can afford it in Asia now? It's the rich Arab countries like the Qatars and the Emirates, or the China and Korea.
Which is interesting. I mean, you mentioned the Middle East, and again, whether it be boxing or football, they're using that as a great marketing weapon and almost as a platform, right? Because it cuts across race, religion, creed, countries, and trying to say, look, this is going to be another attraction to our sort of destination.
They have realized that through sport, they get the eyeballs, internationally, and they even have the opportunity to get people actually visiting their country. I went to Qatar World Cup in 2022. Is it 22? Yeah.
It was 22, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a very good experience. It was a very good experience, very well organized. The Qataris had come out and were very, helpful, and it was a very easy, pleasant experience.
Goes to show, dispelling all the myths and usual propaganda that goes out before. I mean, everyone was saying, what about the aircon? And
and what about those things that one is not allowed to do or imbibe or whatever? It was all there.
Understand.
Available.
Tunku, let me take you around the 200-meter bend and bring you back to the Olympic Games, because it's obviously on our doorstep.
All right.
Just for myself and people watching, we talked about the gold medal, and look, I know that's not everything, but it would be a massive achievement. Do you think there are some Malaysian hopefuls that are on the road that might perform well, and who would you say we need to look out for potentially?
Well, firstly, I think it's we have a very small contingent of 18. It's one of our smaller contingents that we I think it's one of the smallest we've had.
But is that telling, in a way?
Yeah,
I mean, does that tell us something?
It does tell a lot, that a lot of sports, they have been unable to qualify their athletes. We were once quite very good at archery. Now we're the archers. Shooting. We have one shooter, I think. We had at least a team of shooters going. It was so. A lot of these individual sports somehow have sort of dropped down. Badminton also. We have the 8 players, but could have had more perhaps. They got themselves ranked higher. Coming in this last year or so. but I think in the end, and the no diver, one diver, from a lot of all the synchronized diving, which we used to have teams, and then some individuals like Pandalela and others. Now, one diver, not even a partner to dive with. He's got to dive on his own.
Right.
So, it's a sad state of affairs in that sense. But medal hopes, well, I think the best medal hopes will probably come from the track cyclists. Dato Azizul, himself, Azizul Hasni himself, which we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Shah is there, our sort of number 2 rider, but don't underestimate him. He's good, and he's got a lot of heart, just like Azizul. And then, of course, the little girl, Nurul Izzah, she's 21 years old, first Olympics. It's her first time, but I thought she'll make a go of it. But it's from the 2 men that I think you might find a medal, and of course Azizul a big medal. And then badminton, really, and badminton. I mean, we see our badminton players, and not many have won a tournament recently.
Sure.
Even our men's doubles is sort of not, although they've been world champions, but since that world championship they haven't won virtually anything. And the other ones, I mean, are they I think you might at best get a bronze out of a badminton. I'm not sure you can really say that you can predict anything more at this stage. Of course, they're not, and they will all, I'm absolutely sure, all 18 athletes will play out of their skin, because that's the pinnacle. Olympics is the pinnacle of world sport. I think every athlete, who's good enough to sort of get there, getting a medal is everything.
Absolutely, and we obviously wish them all the best.
Yeah.
Tunku, you know this better than anyone. Apart from the games itself, it's almost like recently with the Super Bowl or World Cups, the peripheral and the promotion that surrounds it is almost somewhat not equally important, but plays a role in terms of drumming up excitement and getting people there. With the Olympics itself, how much, we talk about the opening games, the closing games, how much do you reckon that plays a role just in terms of exciting people and the push and the publicity behind it?
Well, of course, Olympic Games, because it's it's the pinnacle of sport. Every 4 years is the Summer Games. Every 4 years it's the Winter Games. It doesn't need too much, push. To
razzle dazzle.
To razzle dazzle to put it there, but it's the city that needs the promotion, because once you get the Olympics, of course, it's the most wonderful way to then market your city, market your country. So I think that you get this event on a plate. Hard work, but on a plate. And then I think that the next thing one has to do is all those involved, whether it's cuisine or it's in a countryside, or it's wine, or it's talking about French Paris and everything. They've got to start pushing themselves and saying, come to Paris, come to France, Olympics, etc., etc. So I think that this time round, I think Paris hasn't done a very good job. France hasn't done a very good job.
That's an interesting statement.
Because the number of times I meet people and I said, I'm going to Olympics this year, and then the first thing they say, oh, is it Olympic year? Next thing they ask is, and where is it?
Right.
So, a lot of people just naturally won't know where the Olympics are. I think I don't know. You might want to go around this.
Do a quiz with
the shopping complex.
the guys here.
You know, the shopping complex. You know, and just ask them, when are the Olympics and where is it? And where is it going to be? Then when is the next one going to be?
So what you're sort of
So I think that they haven't done as good a job as they could have done.
right?
Maybe they just had the World Cup rugby. Maybe they've got Euro is sort of in there, and maybe the French are up here with sport. They've got a president who's in his last year or so. He's due to retire soon. I mean, it's and then you do have this ongoing political issues in worldwide. Of course, you got the Israel issue and you got the Ukraine issue. So that impacts on a lot of things. So I think that's something that I think they've the organizers have to. I mean, they've done a lot, but I think they could have done better. Not everyone can just say
Like previous years, perhaps.
London did a great show because everyone knew it was in London.
Well, let me on that segue, Tunku, let me ask you the question. I mean, having probably been to many and seen many, who do you think has done it the best in your eyes? I mean, obviously we talked about London, and it's interesting how countries and markets will inculcate their own. We talk about the London Games using Danny Boyle, Slumdog Millionaire, as a director for the games, having a Queen lookalike skydive out of a plane, and China obviously was with the pyrotechnics and the technology. Is there one that sort of sticks out in your mind and you go, wow, that was just first class? It's going to be hard to beat.
For me, it's London.
Right.
Because I think that London was just extraordinary how a big city like that could get everyone so together. You felt that everyone was Olympics. From the time you get on the plane or on to the airport or whatever it is, everything was Olympics, and everyone was so helpful, and the internal transportation for the spectators and even the visitors was so good, well organized. Somehow London didn't have any traffic jams. I mean, what happened there? It was really,
Right.
and of course the weather helped. They had sort of great weather at the time.
Right.
And very, very memorable games. China opening ceremony, wonderful, but it's always language problem, and the games itself was very well done, but it was not sort of so easy. Great games was Australia, Sydney.
Sydney, that's right.
Sydney was one of the fun games. I mean, you could feel the casualness of it all. I mean, can you believe that my attaché, as president of the Olympic Council of Malaysia, was a man called Bob Hawke and a wife called Blanche.
Bob Hawke is a former Prime Minister.
Yes.
There you go.
The former Prime Minister of Australia came to Malaysia and asked to be an attaché for the Malaysia.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. Wow.
He didn't get accreditation, so as attaché, he could get accreditation. I said, Bob, surely not. I said, yes. Are you going to have to wear our uniform? Don't worry, I'll wear your uniform. So he wear our uniform all the time, and during the games.
That's unreal.
He had his accreditation, he and Blanche.
Wow.
And he asked me, what should I do? I said, go and enjoy yourself, Bob. And don't worry about me. I'll call you if I need you.
Yeah, brilliant.
And only, I think once did I need him, because I said, come on, Bob, we want you to come to a small dinner party we were giving for all our athletes that were there.
Yeah.
And so, you come and join us.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Tunku, why is it that every time you watch the closing games of every Olympics, the president gets up and goes, "This was the best Olympics games ever," and then it's repeated 4 years later, and you kind of, again, as you get a bit older and you see a few, yeah, is it just a catch cry? I mean,
I think it's just because it's during his tenure. You can't say that during my tenure we had the worst games. So, yeah.
No, but you're setting a pretty big bar, right?
They always say that. Somehow, it's like it's been a tradition since Samaranch and whoever. It's everyone has said it.
Yeah.
When I was president of the Commonwealth Games Federation in Glasgow at the closing ceremony, I said I mustn't say that the best games. So what I did say was I put on a Scottish accent and I asked the driver who'd been with me, my liaison officer, Glaswegian, what is a typical Glaswegian sort of thing to say, you were great or whatever. And she said, pure dead brilliant. So I finished up with, Glasgow, you were pure dead brilliant.
Which I'm sure was met with raptures, right?
They still talked about that.
That's amazing.
Apart from the one when I couldn't open the baton, of course. That was another.
All right, just a couple of quick questions, and really appreciate your time. The Euros are coming up. You're a sports buff. Do you have a quick prediction for us, just in terms of who you think?
It's going to be still one of the top, the big teams, because there's, in that sort of, it's you watch rugby, you watch cricket, there's a DNA in these teams. France has a DNA, Spain and Germany, and those big teams, they do have a sort of a DNA of winning, or it's part of their psyche. I mean, England, yes, very good team, but their DNA is a long time ago, 1966.
Jeff Hurst, that's right. Yes.
So
hasn't been coming home for a long time.
Yes, I know. Well, they always they get there, and then they can't quite get over the hurdle. So it's to me, it's going to be one of those guys who won it before, and who are one of the big teams.
Fair enough. And Tunku, my last question is, because we do ask a lot of our guests from a marketing perspective, look, you've traveled the world, you've done some amazing accomplishments. Again, from a marketing perspective, is there a brand or a personality that's either based here or region-wide that you think at the moment or over the years has done it extremely well, that really just sort of sticks out to you and you go, wow, that's something that moves the dial, moves me?
Well, I'm biased.
Sure. Okay.
I think Nicole David, from a small sport,
as an individual brand herself.
As an individual brand, has become a brand that everyone in Malaysia knows, and everyone in Malaysia wants to have a photograph with. And one of the great things about Nicole is she's giving back. She's giving back big time. She's giving everyone the time to have photo shoots with her. She's got her Nicole David organization, which is going to go places. It's just started. It's very much to do with the B40 squash and education, and particularly the English language. And she's got 60 students. They're all now at the Bukit Jalil Golf Club, who've given us the 3 courts and made classrooms for her, and because I'm on the board. And she's got another 60, and as it goes, they still stay there. They get older, but they're the new lot. And soon she's going to have a whole super academy of squash and and education, and so many universities now, from Sunway to Heriot Watt, have asked her to speak to their students in sports management, about sport and education. And now sport and education is part of her branding now. She's becoming, I think you'll see her in future, very famous for sport and education. She's already a member of the Laureus World Awards, the famous Laureus Sports Awards. She's already a committee member of that, selection committee. She's even now been asked to come to the British Open to give away the prizes or whatever. Brilliant.
Pretty inspiring.
Pretty inspiring for a little girl that in Penang. I think the squash racket was almost taller than her when she started.
What a lovely way to end things, Tunku. Listen, Tunku, always a legend in my eyes. Just want to say thank you so much for coming in and sharing these lovely stories.
Well, thank you, Pete, for having me.
Appreciate your time.
Yep, thanks very much.
Thank you.